It's exactly 2 p.m. I'm live, and as you guys know, as usual, I am just figuring this out. I feel like I'm always figuring it out. I'm always just figuring this out. All right. I'm going to wait and see if anybody joins the live before I get started. I'm going to wait and see if anybody joins before I get started. And I hope I can edit out this part where I just talk to myself until somebody joins. Live is so awkward. Guys, somebody has to join because I'm literally talking to myself. I'm just double checking to see if I can. Studio chat. Hey, Nash. Nash always be showing up. Nash, you go ahead and get started. Tell me where you live. If you're writing your first pilot, um, and if you have any question you're hoping is answered during this live. So that's what I'm going to ask everyone. Where you live, where are you joining us from? If you're writing your first pilot, hi Julie, and what you're hoping to get out of this live. So let me know. I hope anyone who was wanting to join the live is here because y'all, I scheduled it on YouTube. You know what? Y'all don't need to know about my issues. Oop, Nash is from the Midwest. I'm not writing a pilot at the moment, but I have a few pitches that I'm preparing for. Okay, cool. So I take it that that means that's not your first pilot, Nash. But let me know if there's any question that you want answered in this live so that I can see if I can weave it in or make sure to ask it. There will definitely be time throughout the presentation to take questions. Um, yes. Yeah, Julie, if you want to just let me know where you're from, um, or where you live now, if you're writing your first pilot, and what you're hoping to get out of this live. I'd love to answer your questions before the live is over. Ooh, so it would be your first pilot, Nash. Okay, interesting. I always think it's very interesting to write a pitch before you write a pilot, even though I've done it before and I've done it both ways. Um, Now that I've written pilots before I write my pitch, I don't know how I ever wrote a pilot without writing, how I ever wrote a pitch without writing a pilot first. So Julie's from Austin, Texas. She's interested in writing for TV and she's never written a pilot before. Okay, awesome. Let me know if you have any questions that you want answered during this live. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started because it's 4 minutes in. I'm Charla. If you haven't met me before, I've been a television writer for 10 years. I'm currently in the middle of, I would say, a career transition, and it's been going on for the last 4 years. I'm transitioning from just being a TV writer kind of person into being more of a coach. I'm doing a lot of life coaching, I'm doing a lot of mindfulness based coaching. So I've really started to merge those two skill sets into everything I do, whether I'm doing something with Working Writer or if I'm doing something when it's straight up just coaching. So that's where I'm at. I've written for shows on Netflix and TBS and Comedy Central. And I got into the TV industry with very little knowledge and very little training. I really just was a stand up comedian. I really wanted to do stand up. I started doing improv, and improv was a really excellent training for me. I think I started doing improv before I did stand up, and both of those things were really excellent training for me, I think, to be a comedy writer. So I would say being a performer, even if you don't want to perform for the rest of your life, even if you just want to perform so that you can execute an idea or just get the sense of what it feels like to be on stage, because a lot of writers are usually behind the scenes, and they're not really in front people. You learn a ton about what makes people laugh, what people find funny. Um, and like from being a live performer, I also think if you want to be in a writer's room, being a live performer is really helpful, because I always think that writers' rooms are basically like comedy shows sitting down. The writer's room is very much your audience. And when you're pitching an idea, you're really pitching it in a way that I feel like if you have a performance background or if you have a live performance background, it helps you to shape that pitch so that you get your ideas across clearly. And it's just, I think, really, really fantastic training. Ooh, Jillian is here. Jilly Willy is here. Well, I love to see it, girl. So, that's a little bit about my background. I'm Haitian American. I was born in Haiti. I'm from Boston. I live in Vancouver, Canada now. I escaped the US a few years ago, like 4 years ago, like right during the pandemic. It was an opportunity to move, so we took it. It wasn't, shit had not hit the fan yet, but let's see. Anyway, I'm going off course. This is what I love about Alive, because it's like, see, Jillian's not here, so I'm just going crazy. I'm just talking. Anyway, is that my whole intro? Yes. So, who is this live for? This is for people who want to specifically write a comedy pilot, a half-hour comedy pilot. I'm going to lean a little bit more towards people who have never written a pilot before. Uh, but I feel like this is not gonna be dumbed down information, because I just can't do that. So, if you're ready to write your pilot, I am running an 8-week Zero to Pilot class starting on May 4th. I will talk more about that class at the end of the workshop. So, one of the things that I think is really important to keep in mind when you're writing your comedy pilot is that your comedy pilot is just one tool in your toolbox. So, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that, so one of the things that I really didn't understand when I first started writing for television specifically is that I didn't think about the industry aspect of it. I didn't think about having longevity in the industry and what it meant to step into the world or into the profession of being a television writer. I didn't understand that it meant that a big part of my job, aside from just writing, was going to be hunting for my dinner. It was going to be consistently making myself, um consistently presenting myself as someone who is skilled, as someone who has a diversity of skill, and someone who is able to write different kinds of things. So what I'm saying by that is that even though writing a comedy pilot is fantastic, I would highly encourage you, from my experience, to have different kinds of pilots and different types of writing in your writing repertoire, in your toolbox, in your body of work. And that means that it's great to have a half-hour television pilot, but you might want to have a drama in your repertoire. You might want to have a feature film in your repertoire. You might want to have a short. Might want to have something animated. And I'm not saying you have to do all of these. I think you should always go with your interest, go where your interest lies. Like if you really want to write a drama, you should write one. And the reason why is because the industry is just so, it just follows different trends. Every year something is different. Like right now, comedies are not necessarily selling that much. That's just straight up. What's selling a lot? We've seen like a decrease in scripted television period anyway. You're seeing a lot of unscripted on Netflix. You're seeing a ton of Love is Blind episode seasons constantly, like twice a year there's a new Love is Blind. You're seeing Mr. Beast get a TV show. I think I can count on my hands potentially like how many half hour TV comedies are on actual linear television right now. But the point of the matter is, like, there are sometimes in the industry when half hour comedies are up. That's what people are looking for. They're buying. There's times in the industry when animated is really selling. There's a time in the industry when different kinds of comedy pilots are selling. Like maybe they're really buying, um, what are they called? What are those sitcoms? They're buying like a half hour, like I'm trying to like my brain is blanking right now, but multicam sitcoms like the Big Bang Theory, with the laugh track in the background, those kinds of shows, versus when they're buying single cam, or versus when they're buying dramas. They're buying a lot of drama right now. So I personally don't ever think it's good to go with the to make your decisions based off of what people are buying, because those things shift constantly. And generally what I've learned is that the industry never knows what they're looking for. What they're actually looking is for is something original and excellent, and something that like is interesting and different and catches their attention and that they think that they can sell. It's another reason why I think you should not always be writing only to the industry. But obviously, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking to transition your career, if you're looking to get into the television writing, you absolutely need a pilot. And you should probably consider writing a pilot that is currently, um, no, I'll take that back. I always think people win way more when they write something that they actually care about, especially if it's your first one. Um, and I'm talking about the whether you write a half hour or a drama or a feature film or whatever. But the point of this spiel that I've kind of gone off on a tangent is that no matter what, it is just a good idea for you to have different kinds of pilots, different kinds of writing, in your toolbox. So just remember that, even though you're writing a comedy pilot right now, you do not have to get pigeonholed into the comedy pilot genre. You can 100% use it as an exercise to learn how to write a half hour TV show. And then, next time, if you want to build up your body of work, you can write a drama. Absolutely. If you have an idea for that. So let me just look at the comments, see if I got anything. Sid is in Brooklyn. I've been a performer and visual artist since childhood with a measure of success and would love to turn some of that hilarity into TV. Fantastic, Sid. Awesome. Well, let me know if you got any questions. She's first gen from Barbados. I'm Caribbean too, Sid. Okay. Okay, fantastic. So, again, let me know if you have any questions. I will be checking the chat throughout the live. So, what makes a good comedy pilot? I always feel like this is really important just right off the bat. And it's good that the people in here are newer, because, especially as a working television writer, there are just certain things that if I don't see it in a script that I'm reading, I'll immediately put it down. And I'll start with readability, because I think that this is so obvious, but I feel like it needs to be made clear that it is an industry standard. Um, so readability, what I mean by that is typos. And of course, it's like, yes, you'll be forgiven for a few typos, but if your script is riddled with typos, it will be dismissed, it will be put down, because it shows carelessness, of course. Another thing is formatting. Um, if it's just really clear that you don't understand the format of script writing, because there's a especially as a professional screenwriter, you start to learn how to read a script really quickly because of the consistent formatting in industry standard scripts. So if I'm seeing, like, fucked up action line, or if I'm seeing like a format that looks crazy and it's clearly not from Final Draft, or it's clearly not from um Keltec, which is another, I think it's spelled CLTX, which is another cheaper version of script writing software that I've used before. And there's other script writing software, but frankly, Final Draft really is the industry standard. And there's templates in there. And if you use Final Draft, you're much less likely to have formatting that looks crazy and makes people think that you either don't know what you're doing, or it just makes it so difficult to read because the formatting is off that you lose interest. So you don't want these like minor things like typos, like just general mistakes, grammatical mistakes. That's why it's really important to have somebody reading your work so that you don't get dismissed, frankly, by giving it to someone who you really want their eyes on it, or who could potentially move your career forward, offer you a job, or show your script somewhere. You don't want to give them a reason to not share your script, and the readability is one of them. The other thing about readability that I think is something that you notice when someone's a little bit more of an advanced script writer is the pacing and just the flow of it. Like, when you're reading a good script, you don't even notice. You're reading a good script because you don't even notice how quickly you're going through the pages, because the scenes just flow, the writing just flows, the scenes flow into each other. It's not like choppy. It's not like overly, it's not too many action words, like this huge block of text of action like you're reading a book, because scripts are really visual. So you have to remember that when people are reading this, they're imagining what these scenes look like. So that's really important. So I think those are super important. um Julie asks, how do you know that a story is worth, oh, I think I can put these on. That is so cool. Oh yeah. How do you know that a story is worth an entire season? I actually think this is such a good question, Julie, and I hope that through the presentation will answer it, because I think that it might. And if it doesn't, you just let me know. So the next thing that makes a really good pilot, outside of readability, which is like super basic, is originality. Um, if something is boring, if you're writing an opening scene that doesn't really grab our attention, if the story is super predictable, like I knew based off of how you're writing that, yeah, this is what would happen. So it is not interesting. It is not keeping me reading. Like, I feel like it's always important to remember, literally, no matter who's reading this, that everybody's time is limited. We're all inundated with so much information, we're inundated with so much media. And if somebody takes the time to read something, you really want them to enjoy it. You want it to be a fun read, especially if it's a comedy pilot. Of course, it should be funny, but I actually think funny comes from originality, and funny comes from the truth. If you've ever taken like a improv class, one of the first things that you learn is comedy is truth and pain. Comedy is truth and pain. Comedy is truth and pain. I'm pretty sure that was the quote. I learned it literally like 20. I feel like it was so long ago when I started taking improv classes and doing comedy. It was like at least 15 years ago that I took like my first improv class. And that's the first thing that they teach you is comedy is truth and pain. And it is always proven to be true. Things that are funny are things that are true. And if you build a world, if you build a story, if you build characters who are not truthful, I feel like that in itself can be a whole that could be a whole thing. That could be a whole like talk. If you build stories where the world doesn't make sense, where you build different rules and you don't adhere to those rules, then that is a form of not maintaining the truth of that world. If you write characters that are literally like completely unrelatable, we've never seen somebody like this and whatever, like just not a real person. You just write a character that is flat, that doesn't have any wants, that doesn't have any flaws, that has no history. That's another way of not building truth into the world, if that makes sense. Please let me know if I make sense. So when you're creating your world, when you're writing your stories, I'll talk about this more, but basically, readability and originality are the absolute basics of what makes a script good. So straight up, again, the basics. Your half-hour comedy pilot, it's going to be between 30 and 35 pages. If it's more than 35 pages, it really depends on the structure of your pilot, like of your comedy pilot. And we'll talk a little bit more about different comedy pilots next, but it should be around 35 pages and no more. Your pilot might be considered bloated for a half-hour comedy pilot if it's more than that. The three acts. Hello, Tony. Who are you and what makes sense specifically? Let me know. So there's 30 to 35 pages in your pilot. There are three acts in your pilot usually, and it's 3 to 4 stories in your pilot. And by that I mean, like, let's say, 3 to 4 stories. Let's say you're watching New Girl, because New Girl is one of the shows that I use as an example in my class. um, you'll usually see a story with the you know what, let's use Grand Crew because that's another one that I use. You'll usually see a story with Noah, the main character, and maybe he's on his own. In the pilot story, he's on his own and he hangs out with his friends. Basically, in the pilot, the 3 to 4 stories, what I mean is that there will be 3 to 4 distinct stories in your half-hour television pilot. It might be that, "Aw, Nash, you're so nice." Don't forget to like the video as you come in. Thank you. Yes, so there's 30 to 35 pages. There's 3 acts generally in your half-hour TV pilot, and then there's 3 to 4 stories, which means, again, that your you might have 3 to 4 distinct stories that pop up from the first few pages of the script. I'm trying to think of how do I best describe the 3 to 4 stories. Like, it's super simple too. It's literally just like, let's say Noah and Nikki have a distinct story that starts with an exciting incident, that has a escalation, that has a climax, that has a resolution. And then you'll see maybe there's a story with, I'm blanking on the names of the characters. Fantastic. You'll see another story with another character, and then you'll see another story with another character, and each of those stories have a distinct inciting incident. It has a distinct escalation to the story, a distinct climax, and a distinct resolution. And the more you understand how each half-hour pilot has about 3 to 4 stories in it, you'll start to be able to watch half-hour TV shows and be like, "Oh, that's the inciting incident of that story, and that's the inciting incident of that story." It's usually an A, B, C, and a D story, and sometimes we call the D story a runner because it's a very, very short story. And your A story is the biggest story. The B story is a smaller story. It's usually with a side character. Your C story is an even smaller story. Each story takes up less and less real estate. The A story takes up the most real estate. It is the main story of your episode or of the pilot. What's next? All right, so let's get into the elements of the half-hour TV pilot. The elements that are the most important things for you to keep in mind while you're building the world of your while you're building your show is the world, the characters and their relationships. It's not enough just to have the good characters, but their relationships matter. The themes and the stories we want to watch. Those are the elements of your TV pilot. I'm going to go into it more. Would that be the same as main plot and subplots, or is this different? I would say that this is the same, but I feel like main plot and subplot, for some reason, I feel like this is more of a film term. Like you'll hear people use those terms when you're talking about film. You almost never, like in all my years in a TV writer's room, we almost never referred to it as that. It's always like A story, B story. A story would be the main plot, B story would be subplot, C story be subplot, D story be subplot, but we just call them different things. So that is just specifically TV jargon, and that is a good question. Let me just make sure to show it on the screen so that people see what your question was. Would that be the same as main plot and subplot? Definitely more of a film lingo than a TV lingo, but good question. So let's start by talking about the the different elements using these three shows. These are the example shows that I want to use. Um, and let's talk about these example shows, right? Because they're all comedies, but they're all super different, right? Like The Big Bang Theory is a multi-cam sitcom. That means it has a laugh track. That means it has a soundstage. That means that it has like 20 episodes or 21 episodes. I don't know what the current episode order is for multi-camera sitcoms, which we all know has been shrinking over the last few years. So that's a multicam, and that's generally like and multicam's the other thing about them. A multicam sitcom script will have like 5 acts, but it's still kind of broken up in the same kind of structure as a 3 act. It's really just because of commercial breaks, because multicam sitcoms, if it is on television, they'll have specific commercial breaks that they have to write to. Now, if you watch a multicam sitcom on Netflix, you'll notice that they might still have those same story breaks, whereas there's just no commercial. And that's just because of the structure of a multicam sitcom. It is just broken up so that they could add in more commercials. But the structure of the story, there's a beginning, middle, and end. And they just break it up by acts to make sure that at the end of each act, you are wanting more. You're wanting, we kind of leave at a little bit of a, you'll notice in multicam every time either it's a commercial break or they like go to black because they're on Netflix or something. It's a little bit of a cliffhanger, or it's a little bit of like, oh, what happens next? And it's all designed to keep you watching and to make sure that you come back after the commercial. Julian said that we do that with talk shows too. My A story is the craziest story. Okay, interesting. Interesting. A whole new world. Talk shows are so interesting. That's the other thing that's interesting about how the television industry, or like the film and television industry, is that reality show people have so many stories to tell about their industry. Like, people who write narrative, television shows like comedies and dramas, people who write like the film people, like everybody has different stories. But I think it's like really smart for you to write different things so you have opportunities in different sectors if one sector is kind of dead at the moment. So I talked about The Big Bang Theory. I talked about how it is a multicam sitcom, and those typically have 5 acts, even though it's still basically 3 act structure. It's just written that way for commercial breaks. So that's why I use 3 act structure in my class, because that is the standard structure. And when I talk about 3 act structure, I feel like the easiest way to think about it is just it's the beginning, middle, and end of your story. And I break that down a lot more in my class. The next show I'm going to be using as an example is Fleabag. Fleabag is a dramedy. Fleabag is like also 30 to 35 pages is in general in TV, anything that is a half hour is generally considered a comedy. That's why a lot of times that you'll see like oh my god, what was that show that Christina Applegate was in and she like murdered somebody? Her like she was hiding a murder. But anyway, that show is super dark and it's not comedy, but because it's half hour, it was like in all of the comedy categories for awards. So that's really the industry standard. If something is half hour, even if it's not that funny, like Fleabag, a show like Atlanta is similar to Fleabag. It's a half hour dramedy and it's in all the comedy categories, but Atlanta doesn't necessarily try to be funny, especially not in the later seasons. Another show that is similar to Fleabag, I would say, is Masters of None. Is Life with Beth, I think it's called, or like if you know any other examples of shows that are dramedies, please put them in the chat. But that's an example of Fleabag. And I didn't give more examples of shows like The Big Bang Theory, but Two and a Half Men, um, Friends, anything with a laugh track is a multicam sitcom. Dead to Me. Yes, thank you, Nash. That is the name of the show that was with Christina Applegate. And then the last one I'm going to be using as an example is Grand Crew. That is the most recent show I worked on. And Grand Crew is an example of a network comedy. So, uh, sorry, it's an example because both Grand Crew and Big Bang Theory are network comedies, but the Big Bang Theory is a multicam sitcom, whereas Grand Crew is a single camera comedy. And single cam just means that you're not on a soundstage usually. You're out in the world, even if it is a built set, like you're more likely to see single cams um, filming out in the wild. And there's no laugh track. And other examples of network single cam comedies are New Girl and what else? Gimme Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You got it, Marcy. 100%. Yes. um, so you guys got it. So these are all comedies, and it's really up to you what kind of structure you want. I always feel like sometimes, like right now, I've been writing a half-hour comedy for years. Like it's just one of those ideas that's just like in the back of my mind, and like the vibes are just not there. But I've gone back and forth about whether or not this should be a multicam sitcom or if it should be a regular single cam network comedy. Uh, and one of the reasons I've gone back and forth is because my manager was telling me that, right now the industry is really buying multicam sitcoms because multicam sitcoms are cheap. But again, my personal rule is that I don't necessarily write to what the industry is doing. You can, and there ain't no shame in it, but I always feel like it helps me way more to get my idea executed than to try to fit it into whatever people are telling me at the moment is what's popular. Also because I honestly feel like nobody, even if the numbers are showing something, nobody ever really knows. Like it's truly the good stuff rises to the top. Write something good is really, I think, the best advice. So these are the shows that I'm going to be using to talk about the elements. Let's jump into the world. Yeah. So when people think about the world, sometimes I feel like they think it's just like the setting and the time period that we're in. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine is set in Brooklyn and in present day New York. And that is true, but the world is the world of I would say Brooklyn Nine-Nine is interesting because it's the world of policing, but it's like this very like bright network comedy version of policing. And really the world is policing, but it's also very specifically about this group of officers at the 9-9 and their relationships with each other. And how they deal with they also deal with issues of like policing changing and the perception of policing changing. That's one of the themes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So, the world. Your world is not just about your setting and your time and place. It's not just about the city that you put it in. It's not about the whether it's like in Victorian era or if it's in the present day. The world of your show is about a interesting and specific experience. And that's the way that I want you to think about it, because I think it's what makes it easier to actually ideate your television show. Like, let's talk about the Big Bang Theory, right? What is the world of the Big Bang Theory? It's the world of it's the world of nerds. It is the world of these four nerds. They specifically all I'm like trying to think like it is the world of nerds, and the themes that comes up from though that world is their how do they deal with relationships, how are they around girls, what are their interests, what it looks like when a nerd falls in love. So all of these things I would consider like this is the world of the Big Bang Theory. What's the world of Fleabag? What's the interesting and specific experience that we're watching when we watch Fleabag? We're watching the world of a guys, I just picked these shows randomly. What are we watching when we watch Fleabag? We're watching the world. It's like the experience of there's actually so much going on in Fleabag. She is grieving from a loss of her friend. She is breaking up. She has relationships with her. She has different relationships she dates. She also has a very interesting and weird relationship with her dad and his new wife. So what kind of world are we watching? The interesting specific experience of this of Fleabag uh being a less than admirable woman. That is actually, I think, the specific experience of Fleabag. It is the world of a less than admirable woman, is how I would describe it. And then I would describe Grand Crew. What's the world of Grand Crew? So the Grand Crew is about friends who hang out at a wine bar, and it's like just the world of their relationships. So Grand Crew is about the world of a group of Black friends who like wine, who deal with their friendships and relationships. I would say that's the specific world of Grand Crew, the specific and interesting. And I think that you can take it with a grain of salt when I say interesting. Specificity, I think, is like more important. I also like to use what is it called? Oh my God, guys. This is why I love editing, because nobody sees my brain farts. Grey's Anatomy. I love Grey's Anatomy as an example. I love because Grey's Anatomy is the world, not just because there's like so many different hospital dramas, but Grey's Anatomy is specifically about the world of surgical interns. So uh, they got incredibly specific when they got to Seattle Grace Hospital. It could have been about literally anybody at Seattle Grace Hospital, but it's specifically about the world of surgical interns. And then we learn about everything about those surgical interns. And you can see how themes emerge from worlds that are specific. I actually, if I will give one, um, if I'll give one criticism of Grand Crew, is that I definitely think the world could have been more specific, right? Like I think that like it was about a group of friends who like wine in LA and they're Black, which is cool. But I think one of the things that I really appreciate about shows is getting to go into a world that I'm not really a part of. And maybe that's what it was. Like Grand Crew, I feel like was about me. Like in my boring ass, like I go to wine bars and I'm Black in LA, or I was at the time. And like, is that interesting? To me, I get not really because that's my life. But you know, I can find aspects of the Big Bang Theory that I find very interesting because I'm not a nerd and I don't know that world at all. I found Fleabag quite interesting because I have always been the type of woman who is Haitian Christian, brought up to follow all the rules, and what does it look like when somebody doesn't give a shit about the rules, and she's a woman, and she's not trying to be good. And I really appreciated that because it's interesting and specific, right? When I look at, like, I use Grey's Anatomy, the specific world of surgical interns. But one of the things I was going to say about the more interesting and specific your world is, the easier it is to see themes emerging for your show. Like, because the Big Bang Theory is specifically about nerds and nerd culture, then there's so many themes that come out of that. There's so many episode ideas that come out of that, like going to, like, some, like, Comic-Con, like playing video games, like liking toys, like, and what kinds of episode ideas come from that. Fleabag in her world of being a shitty woman and, like, watching her navigate a breaking up with her boyfriend, a new relationship, dealing with grief, like her business failing or whatever. Like, I'm telling you, like, so many themes can get plucked out much easier when you have a world that is interesting and specific. So one of the things that I really think will be one of the things that will be helpful to you in ideating your world is think, what is interesting about the world of the show that I want to create? What is specific about it? Can it be more specific? Is the world of my show interesting enough to me? And can it be more specific? I feel like I could have used better examples for the world, but we're doing comedies. And I think that, like, comedy, I guess Two and a Half Men has a very specific world because that's the world of a single dad, and, like, you know, and his philandering brother, and all of the stories that come from that, and all the hysterics and things like that. But I genuinely think that, like, Grey's Anatomy and shows like Breaking Bad, like, I think dramas tend to have richer, more specific worlds because dramas are longer and you kind of have to have a lot more to work from. Whereas comedies are much simpler stories. They tend to be a lot more um, relationship driven instead of plot driven, like dramas. So keep that in mind. All right, so that's the world of your show. The next part that you're really going to want to pay attention to is the characters and their relationships. So, like I said, dramas tend to be a lot more plot driven. They tend to be a lot, like, for instance, I don't want to use that example. Like, comedies are a lot more character driven and they're a lot more relationship driven. Like, if you notice, every comedy that you watch, the story revolves around the characters and their relationships. You right, Nash. The Nanny has a specific world as well, super specific, of this woman nannying these rich children in New York City and their single dad. So yeah, super specific world, and all of the themes and the stories that come from that. So for let me talk about a show. Like, I haven't watched The Big Bang Theory in years and years. So again, guys, I should have chose shows that I, like, literally just watched. But Fleabag and Grand Crew, I will say that I've watched way more recently, obviously. Grand Crew, I think, is the best example of this for if you want to write, let's say you want to write a network comedy. When you think about shows like Grand Crew, when you think about shows like New Girl, what is the structure of every episode? The structure of every episode is not, she has to do a thing and we watch her do the thing, and she either fails or succeeds at the thing. Let's even think about the pilot. Let's think about the pilot of Grand Crew and the pilot of New Girl. These are actually the shows that I use in my class to as examples. So in the pilot of Grand Crew, Noah basically proposes to his girlfriend, and because he proposes to his girlfriend and she says no, and sorry if this is, you know, I don't think spoilers matter anymore. We're in 2025. Everything's out. You could have watched it if you wanted to. Noah proposes to his girlfriend. She says no. And he proposes to and his girlfriend works at the bar that the crew hangs out at. So because she says no, the crew has to find a new place to hang out. So yes, part of Noah's story is that he has to deal with the fallout of, the emotional fallout of getting declined or getting rejected in his proposal. But what are we watching? We're watching him talk to his friends about it. We're watching his friends get mad at him because they can't hang out at the bar that they love. Oh, that's great. I'm so glad I helped Nash notice something. Yeah, like even if we watch like The Big Bang Theory, the pilot is all about how what's his name is in love with the girl next door. And in general, even Friends, even New Girl, like all of these comedies, like it's always about the relationships, the friendships. Like at the end of the Grand Crew pilot, Noah has to basically, the resolution is that they finally find the wine bar, and they realize that they're going to be wine drinkers from now on, because the previous bar was just like a regular bar. So, and he basically makes up with his friends because they were mad at him that he got them kicked out of their hangout spot. So you'll notice that, like, I feel like the world is like is the structure of the house, but everything else about the house is the characters, the roof, the furniture, the warmth in the house. The actual thing that makes the house livable is the characters. The world is really just the shingles, or like the structure that everything else hangs off of. And I would say that is kind of the same for, I would say it's the same for dramas and comedies alike. The characters that you build and their relationships with each other are going to be your story. Like, even if your show is about, let's just use Grey's Anatomy again. Grey's Anatomy is Seattle Grey's Hospital is about surgical interns. But what are we actually watching when we watch Seattle Grey's Hospital? We're watching different characters navigate their friendships with each other. We're watching different characters fuck each other, break up and make up, have crushes on each other. Every television show you watch, characters, their relationships. And when you're watching Abbott Elementary, there's you're watching over seasons of Janine and her bae break up, and then her get with the other guy. I'm blanking on everybody's name. Wonderful. But that's what we're watching. We're watching relationships. So the characters, their dynamics, do they like each other? Were they previously in a relationship together, like a romantic relationship together? Are they friends who are no longer friends? Like, not only where are we finding your characters when we land, like where are they in their lives when we land in this pilot, but where are we finding their relationships with each other? And this is an opportunity to like really make the world rich. Like, these people in this world are real, so that means that they have histories. That means that they've had tiffs with each other. They've had crushes on each other. They've broken up. They've divorced. You know what I mean? Like, all of these people have relationships. And so what are the dynamics of their relationships? What are the dynamics of these characters that you have? Like, how are they related to each other? How are they going to interact with each other in the world? Somebody said they really wanted to spin off with Penny and Leonard. For real though. So yeah, so when you're thinking about your characters, I would say that when I'm thinking about building characters, I think that a want is really important, making sure that your character has wants. Every single one of your characters should have a want. Like, when you think about Grand Crew, one of the first things that we learn about Noah is that he wants a marriage like his parents had. What's his core wound? His mom died when he was young. I don't remember the core wounds for the Big Bang Theory characters. Fleabag has a really big core wound, and I feel like if you haven't watched it, I'm not gonna spoil it, even though it's 2025, y'all. But I respect it because it basically makes the whole show if you know about Fleabag's core wound. So I feel like you might not watch the whole show. You might be mad at me. Um, is it easier to build a show with one character as a focal point? Example, Fleabag, Abbott Elementary. Absolutely, tons of shows. That's what's called. Um, uh, I mean, yeah, you would call it a character-driven show, but like, though I forgot the actual term for that, but all of these shows that I'm pretty much showing you, except for Fleabag, are ensemble casts. Like even in the ensemble cast for The Big Bang Theory, Leonard is our way into the pilot, even though we'll have other characters taking over the main story, the A story in different episodes. Big Bang Theory is very much an ensemble show. Grand Crew is very much an ensemble show. Noah is our way in. He's the character who has the first A story. He's the character who introduces us to the world. It's his story that we follow in the pilot, but in other episodes, Nikki has the A story, or the other characters have the A story. Fleabag, you'll notice she is in every episode. She's in pretty much every scene. She's very clearly the main character. I would say that New Girl, Jess is very much the main character, even though it's an ensemble show. I feel like I hardly saw any episode without her in it. She's like, clearly she's New Girl, so she is the show. So I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched that much Abbott Elementary. I haven't watched. I feel like because I've worked in TV in so long, like my brain like watches TV so slowly nowadays. Like right now, I'm watching White Lotus, and I'm still on the like I haven't even gotten to the second episode. Like I just watch TV so slowly nowadays. But yes, um, is it easier to build a show with one character? I think if it is, I don't think so, frankly. I don't think that it is easier or harder. I think it really depends on like what world you want to explore with your show and the characters that inhabit that world. And for me personally, I tend to write shows like Fleabag because in my mind, I'm always the main character and I'm always writing shows that are like reflective of that. And I started my career very early writing shows about Black women who aren't, or a Black girl who's not good, quote unquote. So I love that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, I don't tend to write. I have written an ensemble animated comedy. It's like a family show, and that show was very much an ensemble show where different characters would take the lead in different episodes. But I would say that one of the things that I try to do is not box in my idea too early. Like, even if I thought that my show was like a single character driven kind of show where she's in every episode, she's in everything, and it's not really an ensemble show. If as I'm writing it's becoming more of an ensemble show, that's okay. And you'll also notice that some shows kind of slip in and out. I would say like Grand Crew is a little bit of that because Grand Crew like started with a main character and then we kind of see Noah have the A story in a few episodes, but it's very much an ensemble show. So I feel like it's good to have an understanding of the different types of shows, but I also feel like shows change. Like I'm thinking about Atlanta. In the first season of Atlanta, Ern was like in every episode, and then like in the last season of Atlanta, he's like literally not even in episodes. So it's like I feel start with the easiest thing for you and go from there. Always start with the absolute easiest thing that you can do. So that's characters and their relationships. The next thing is themes. Like I said, a lot of your theme will come from the world that you set up, the interesting and specific experience that we're following. and your characters and their relationships. Like for example, one of the show that I've been writing forever that I just can't write or won't write, whichever one is the answer at the moment, is it's called Witchsters. I've talked about it before. I did a short and it's on my comedy YouTube channel. I did a short for Witchsters. And as far as I can tell, that show is an ensemble show. It is a single cam mockumentary show about three sisters who are witches and their relationship with their mom. So that's a super specific, interesting, I think it's a specific and interesting world to me. So, and what are the themes that come from that, right? I told you the characters are three sisters and their mom. So right there, just with the world and with the themes, I mean, just with the world and the characters, we already have certain themes that are emerging from my show, Witchsters, sisterhood, motherhood, magic, one of the relationships, because we're watching the sisters date and discover themselves in relationships, mother daughter relationships. So there's like clear themes that come up as soon as you get the world and the characters and their relationships together. And themes are super important because that's what's going to help you write episodes. If you're writing a pilot and you need to write a pitch deck for it, like drawing out the themes from your world and your character and their relationships is really going to help you come up with different episode ideas that you can put in your pitch document. Because obviously, like for instance, Grand Cru, right? Grand Cru is about Black friendship, it's about wine, it's about uh, romantic relationships and dating as a millennial, pretty much. So what are the kind of episodes that we saw that came out of those themes from Grand Cru? We saw Nikki date a Republican in the pilot. We saw Garrett, what's his name? I'm blanking on the names of the characters. Him and his wife, one of the only character who's married, we watch the issues that the relationships issues that come up with his wife. We watch the friends try to build careers or shift careers. We watch the friends fall in love or like get into fights. Like the episodes come from the themes and the themes come from the world and the characters. And that's like the kind of the math that I use. Like this is the equation that I use. Your world plus your characters and their relationships plus themes equal stories we want to watch. And if you know, for any television show, that's what the pilot is always, that's what the question of the pilot answers. The pilot basically shows us, it introduces us to a world, it introduces us to characters, it introduces us to themes and things like that. And basically, we watch the pilot to determine, do I care about this world? Do I care about these characters? Do I want to watch these stories? So that's what I think boils down to what makes us want to watch those stories, is that if you have a world that is interesting and specific, if you have characters that we can relate to who are honest, and their relationships with each other, plus those themes, that is what equals the stories we want to watch. So I'm coming to the end of this presentation. So let me know if you have any questions, so I can answer them before we bounce. But I built two really simple guides. These are super simple just to get you thinking about your story ideas, your pilot idea. If you're wanting to write it, the Blue Sky Guide is just the guide to do what's called blue skying, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's a television term in writers' rooms where we're really just brainstorming. It's a really big brain dump of all of the ideas that you have for your show. And blue skying is one of the best tools that you can use to like really get started on your TV idea. The other thing is the Zero to Pilot guide. And in that guide, it's pretty similar to the Blue Sky guide. It's just a little bit, has a little bit more questions, has a little bit more guidance to help you, some questions to help you think about your show. So you can download the Blue Sky guide and the Zero to Pilot guide. You can find those on my YouTube channel links if you haven't downloaded those yet. And like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm going to be doing the Zero to Pilot class. It starts May 4th. We're going to be developing the world characters, your pilot story, the engine of your show. You're going to be completing a beat sheet, an outline, a first draft, and a rewrite of your script. Like, this is the industry process. Like, when you're in a television writer's room, we start by blue skying. We move on to writing a very loose beats of the story. We move on to the outline, then the first draft, and the rewrite. So you're very much learning the process that we use in the writer's room to ideate and execute your pilot. And I, of course, always like to encourage people. So you will be getting some mindset stuff from me when it comes to writing your pilot and pursuing a creative career. The course is fully online. So that means that it is asynchronous, even though we will have a start date and an end date, and there will be weekly assignments. It is fully online. You can do the lessons whenever it works for you. The lessons, I think, are pretty short. I don't think there's any lesson that's like more than half an hour. It's like really just the most essential information that you need to write your pilot. You'll have 100 days of access to the class and the community. And there will be 2 virtual group calls with me where we'll review the material, and I'll answer any questions that you have. And just to be super clear, just the online course option does not come with script review from me. I will be encouraging you to reach out to other course members and review each other's scripts and give each other notes. If you are a first time pilot writer, I highly recommend doing the one-on-one option with me, where I'll be reviewing your beat sheet, your outline, your first draft, and your second draft. So you'll get a lot of script review, and any additional support if you're a first time writer. And you don't, of course, have to be a first time writer to do the one-on-one course with me. I think it can be a better option if you feel like you need that additional support when you're writing your pilot. But even if you have written a bunch and you just want to have that support and that script review, then I'm totally here, and you can sign up for the one-on-one option and not just the course. All right, guys. That is it for me. I hope you learned a lot from this. I don't see any additional questions in the chat. I'm going to hang out for another minute or two just in case I do see a question. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining. I hope you got a lot out of this, and I hope to see you in the upcoming Zero to Pilot class. At the very least, make sure to download those free guides and see if those are helpful in ideating your pilot. I'm just going to hang out for a minute or two before I get off. Thanks again so much for coming. Please like and subscribe if you want more content like this. My pleasure, Sid. My pleasure, Nash. My pleasure, Marcy. So Scylla says, you mentioned in a recent video that we need to rethink our goals since the industry is changing. Should we be writing pilots in hopes of doing it solo like YouTube or to pitch? The short answer is yes. The short answer is yes. And I do plan on doing another live next week on this very topic. So I, look out for details on that live when that will be coming up, so we can talk about this more in depth. But I do think that if you want to specifically write for television, you should just have a script ready. You just should. And like whether or not the industry is changing, you should. But I do think that the if we're looking at the last 4 years in the industry and the things that have happened and the economic climate right now in the United States, it's like hard to imagine the like those jobs coming back completely or in full force in the next few years. So I would say to be completely honest, yeah, like you should be considering writing these things for your own uh indie production. I do think indie production might get more popular as the years go on because of the internet landscape we're in and the television landscape that we're in, where things are just more fractured. It's like it's more open. There's just more tools. There's just more ways to be an indie creator, an independent creator, than it is to get a job as a television writer. And one thing I will say is that like you've all if you are a television writer or you're a creative working in the industry, then you know that you always have been an independent contractor. You've always had to hunt for your dinner. It's never been the kind of industry where things just easily fall in your lap without you first putting work out into the world and showing people what your voice is, what your skill level is, and what kind of stories that you want to tell. So I always think if you want the opportunity, it's better to do it than not to do it, because somebody else is doing it and they'll get the opportunity because they were ready and they wanted it. So be ready for the kind of opportunity that you want, but keep your eyes open and be honest and you know, pay attention to like what's going on in the industry. Yep, stay ready. Exactly. Stay ready. All right, I don't see any other questions. If you do have any others, you can always leave a comment on the video that uploads after this, and I'll do my best to answer it. But I'll see you guys next week with that industry live. Now, how do I stop this?